Every martial artist has a story, a path of struggle, discipline, and transformation. The victories, the failures, the mentors who guided them, and the moments that nearly made them quit. From white belt to master, these are the stories behind the discipline, the spirit, and the warrior within. This is their story. This is Tale of the Dragons. Well, thank you for coming on and joining us, man. It's quite the honor to have you here.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Glad I could do this.
So just jumping right into it, what first drew you to the martial arts?
One of the guys at the boys club in Des Moines was teaching it. Sergeant Joe Phillip just got out of the Marines, and he was teaching Taekwondo at the boys club. So my friends and I used to hang out there and we'd watch him. But I don't know, I was kind of pressured not to join in because it was too nerdy kind of a thing, you know. And so I didn't start then. But then when I went into the Army, you know, got introduced to hand-to-hand combat, which, you know, it leaves a lot to be desired because they can't teach you everything. So when I got to my first duty station, I looked up a martial arts instructor in Gojo-Ryu and started training in Gojo-Ryu my first year in the Army.
Did you realize it was going to become a lifelong path for you?
No, he had us doing some really weird stuff, you know, like driving our spear hands into a box of rice and a box of beans and then pea gravel. And I'm thinking, this is kind of radical, but I stuck it out. And then I got to my next deployment and I found a guy teaching Shotokan. So I thought, well, I'll give that a try because that was all there was. And then I hooked up with the 10th Group Special Forces in Bad Tolz, Germany for 3 months. I trained with those guys, and actually I was a few light years ahead of them when it came to hand-to-hand combat after 2 solid years of martial arts. And then when I got out, the day after I got out of the Army, the very next day, I went to Kim's Academy of Taekwondo, Karate, and Judo up on Euclid.
It was judo back then, too?
That's what I wanted. I had stand-up for 3 years, and I wanted a ground game. So I went there, and I said, I want to take judo. And the guy's name was Gary. He was the salesman. He says, we don't have judo. I said, well, the sign says judo. Well, we don't have a judo instructor. But you want to try this new super karate called Taekwondo. And I started it the next day. And there I was. Decades later, I was still doing it.
Wow, that's amazing. What were some of the hardest challenges you first faced when you started training in Taekwondo?
My legs hurt. I remember that first week I started a new job, just got out of the Army. I hadn't even out of the Army a day. So a week later, I started a new job. And I remember calling in sick because my legs hurt so bad from doing all those stupid kicks. So, yeah. And I stuck with it. I met a lot of people. I met the sergeant who was teaching at the boys club, and we became lifelong friends. He tried to get me to break away from the guys I hung out with on the east side of Des Moines. And it took me a while before I got away from those guys, and he was glad to see me. And in fact, I was training with Bobby Barangan at his Kempo school at the West Des Moines Gymnastics Club that summer and fall. And then we went to Kim's tournament, and I ran into Joe Phillip at that tournament. And he said, no, you want to come back to Kim's Academy. Come on back to Taekwondo, because I'd left. And he taught me into coming back. So I went back to Taekwondo, and I stayed there. I got my wife involved, 4 children actually, got them involved, and made a lot of lifelong friends, including Bobby. I've known Professor Barangan probably longer than I've known any other martial artist. About 50 years now.
Wow. How long did you do Taekwondo at Kim's?
I did it until Mr. Kim left Des Moines. He up and moved to Texas. He turned his school over to Tim Jacobs. And at that time, I wasn't interested in continuing with Tim Jacobs. And so I was pretty much teaching on my own out of our garage and out of a school up on Euclid and running our own school there for quite a while. I thought about 17 years I was teaching.
Wow.
You know,
In your training days as you were going at it, did the ego ever get in the way?
No. Well, not really. When we were in the military, I was training with the 10th Group Special Forces at Fort Devens. A couple of guys come up with the idea that we need to go downtown to the combat zone in Boston and try some of this stuff out. Oh, it was a $20 cab ride. We just catch a cab outside Fort Devens, go down to Boston and spend the evening there hanging out in the commons, the gardens, which was called the combat zone. And we didn't pick fights, but we didn't back down from them. And we did that one summer. It was,
One
you know,
summer.
we got called in on the carpet with the commanding off the captain, and he said he'd getting some complaints from the Boston PD, and he didn't want us going down there anymore. But
That's awesome.
it
Did,
was
go ahead.
just, it's a bunch of guys with really crew cut haircuts, and everybody down there had long hair, black leather jackets, silver studs on their belts, and all that crap. And we come down there wearing our combat boots and got our short hair. Well, they know we're from the military, and so it doesn't take long before somebody wants to try it. But we were lucky; nobody carried guns and knives pretty much back then. You couldn't get away with
good.
that today. Probably get shot.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your training over the years, when you were young, what did you think strength meant, and how did that definition change over time for you?
Well, none of us lifted weights when we did martial arts. Not like today, people are lifting weights and using it to help their martial arts. It was all about speed. The power was developed with speed. And if you could throw a round kick fast, you could develop the power. And that's what it was all about back then. None of the martial arts masters lifted weights. Mr. Kim put in Nautilus equipment, and some guys would lift Nautilus weights. My friend of mine, Scott, we got caught doing Nautilus after Mr. Kim's class, and he chewed us out. He said, if you got the energy to lift weights after my class, you didn't work out hard enough. And the next class, he made us work till we threw up. So we never let him catch us lifting weights again.
Brutal old school stuff.
Yeah. And nowadays, people take TRT injections to do jujitsu, and they lift weights, and they're in their 40s. Well, we were in our 30s, and early 40s, and we just never thought about lifting weights to accent our martial arts.
Wow.
So
in your martial arts career, your journey, do you ever think about quitting?
yeah, my wife, she got sick for about 6 months. My parents' house burned to the ground. I was in the guard. I had that going on, so something had to give. So I quit teaching Taekwondo for about 6 months. I got out of the guard. I got my parents into another house. I took care of them. I got my wife better. And then I started training again. But I had to take care of a lot of family stuff. And that was the only time there was a gap. My students, they couldn't fill the gap. They were still young at that time. I didn't expect it from them. But
Man, that's
I
deep.
never wanted
What
to
kind
give
of-
it up completely.
That's good. I mean, going through those hard times, but did martial arts help you get through that with some of the life lessons that you learned during martial arts?
No, not really. I was in really good physical shape. If I hadn't been, it would have drugged me down. I would have, I probably got sick, from all the stress and everything I was under. So it helped me with the stress. Like I said, I was in really good shape from doing martial arts. So I was healthy, and I was able to take care of my family by being healthy.
You
And
don't
work
hear a lot of people
full-time job.
talking about that aspect of it these days, about physical strength and whatnot. And you're a testimony to that. I get the chance to work out with you sometimes and get locked up by your arms. Good job.
Yeah. But not this week. I cracked a couple ribs about 3 weeks ago, and I'm on the mend. And
What happened?
rolling, doing jujitsu with a guy who's in his 40s. And it just caught me, and we rolled. And I think it was his ankle bone or his heel went into my rib cage, and I felt him pop. I just drove myself to the emergency room, and the ER doctor, he goes, people your age usually crack their ribs from falling down steps, not doing jujitsu. He says, kudos to you. I'm like, all right. I'm like a hero to these guys now. But no, I'm better. I'll be in class on Saturday. So it's just, you have to
Does
temper it.
jiu-jitsu really fill the void for you?
It gives me my ground game. I always wanted the ground game. And when this came about in Des Moines 10 years ago, I signed my daughter up. And yeah, it's a great hands-on. It's not like point fighting. I mean, you're actually mixing it up. It's like actually hard boxing or wrestling or grappling. It's just you're hands-on, and you actually know what you got to do to get out of it. And I'm confident that it gave my daughter a lot of skills that I don't have to worry about her. But
Absolutely.
It's not for everybody. I mean, here I am, 73 years old, and so I have to temper myself how much I can do. If I do like 8 or 9 rounds after class, I'll wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning like I got hit by a truck. I mean, I hurt all over. And so now I'll do like 5 rolls and then I can go again the next day. But you learn. I mean, after 50 years in martial arts, hopefully you've been paying attention.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How long you been doing jiu-jitsu? 10 years, you say?
10 years, yeah.
And now you're in a, do you call it a dojo?
Yeah, that's a dojo.
And dojo in Minnesota. Okay. And you just do open mats, or is everything structured?
We do about an hour-long class, and then we have open mat afterwards where you just roll with somebody and you just keep passing around. I like to roll with the brown and black belts. They're less likely to hurt me on accident. So I thought,
Absolutely.
Kip, he's a good friend of mine. So, I mean, it wasn't something he did. He feels bad, I mean, anytime they hurt the old man, they're going to feel bad.
Are you the old man there? Are you the old man there?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's nobody my age. I mean, the closest one is 20 years younger than me. Everybody I roll with is between 20 and 40 years younger.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's hard to believe that I've been doing it this long and I'm still doing it. I don't think I know how to quit.
There's no quit in you at all.
I guess the journey ends at the grave is what I tell people.
I believe that. You are a living testimony to that. You and a handful of other people I've had the experience to know in the martial arts world is just the perseverance and resilience is amazing.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, you can see my dojo behind me. This is where I do all my training when I'm not in the dojo at the gym. So
that's pretty awesome.
This was a workshop when we bought the house, and my daughter Jaden, she said, let's turn it into a gym. So we gutted it. She picked out the colors, and we got mats, carpet, sauna, everything out here. So this is where I spend probably 2 to 3 hours a day.
You got to tell us about that picture on the back wall.
Oh, the tiger.
The tiger.
Yeah, so that came from the lady that owned King Ying Lo restaurant in downtown Des Moines, Susie. She got that. They ordered it. It's on rice paper. It's a watercolor, really beautiful. She closed King Ying Lo downtown and opened it up across from Merle Hay Mall on Douglas. As we were out there having dinner one day, out by the U-Haul place there, she took me aside and she says, look, I've got this picture. She says, I know you guys use a tiger for your emblem on your school. And she says, this is an angry tiger. It's not conducive to a nice restaurant. And besides, she says, it makes a noise like it's trying to get out of the frame. She was really superstitious about it. She says, would you like it? And I said, sure. So it hung in our school. And one of my students sang Levon, he wants it. When it's time for me to get rid of it, he wants it handed down to him. So it hangs in our school, that tiger.
That's awesome. Let me piggyback on that. You talked about one of your students and your teaching career over the years. Has a student ever taught you a lesson that changed your martial arts life or your life?
No, I learned some things from some of my students. I could teach them techniques that I couldn't do, like jump, spin, heel kick. I mean, I could do a spin heel kick, but I just didn't have, because I was teaching later in life. So I couldn't do a jump spinning heel kick, but I could teach them. And I taught them humility that they didn't know they needed to learn. And I had a couple of students think that they're really cocky and they're going to beat up the master, And, yeah, but it was all in fun, I think. I'm still friends with all of them. So, but
that's amazing.
A lot of them have come up to me later on in life, especially like Sang and Dang. And they've come up to me and told me that I had straightened out their lives. They probably would have turned out a lot worse than they did if it hadn't been for me and my wife teaching them and keeping them out of gangs and keep them out of trouble, which that's a payback.
That's good.
Some of my other students have mentioned on Facebook that's a payback, that they were glad I was there for them and Deb was there for them.
I'm glad you're able to hear that because, that's probably one of those things that falls by the wayside for a lot of instructors, that they don't get that kind of feedback later in life, right?
Yeah, and people need to hear that. I went to a school teacher friend of mine, and he was in his 80s. And I went up to him, I said, look, you're not going to hear this after you're dead and gone, so I want you to know now what a difference you made in my life. And I really appreciate hearing that, because he's not going to hear it as eulogy,
Right.
You want to tell people that.
So how has martial arts shaped Tommy Paulson outside of martial arts?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I had a commanding officer who told me I was full of piss and vinegar and had a lackadaisical attitude. So he sent me down to Bad Tölz, Germany, and stuck me with the 10th Group Special Forces for 3 months, training with the guy to work it out of me. And I think that started me on knocking that crazy shit off and growing up. Because by that time I was 20, but I was still a kid. And then that straightened me up. And I think martial arts has made me a little more calmer. Um, I have more patience, and I don't know if that's just becoming getting older. You know, I tell my daughter I'm a lot better parent now as a grandfather than I was when I was a father. I think martial arts has a lot to do with that too, and it's sticking with it. You know, actually, and I don't mean like MMA fighting. I mean the strict martial arts where you learn the katas, you learn the reason behind all the movements, the strikes, everything. And you realize what you can do if you hit somebody, right or wrong. You hit them the wrong way or the right way. I mean, how you can really hurt somebody. And you don't want to, you just don't want to be responsible for that. So you just suck it up, buttercup, and turn the other cheek. And, you know, I've done that. Sometimes I don't, you know, but it's been a lot of fun. I mean, why study a martial art if you're not going to practice it? If you're not going to see if it works, once in a while you got to find out if it works, and you don't have to go start the fight because there's always somebody who's looking at you from across a crowded room, and they're going to like, "What the f- are you looking at?" And now you can either just tip your head down and finish your drink, or you can say, "Well, let's just step outside."
If there was a pay-per-view site where we could air the stuff that you want to say and throw it out there, that'd be fantastic. Let's say you never were in martial arts. You never had that experience. You did the military, but you never had the martial arts aspect afterwards. Where do you think Tommy Paulson is? What do you think his life looks like without martial arts?
I think I'd be in worse health for one. I probably would have been like my brother and drank a lot. Alcoholism runs in the family, and my brother died from a motorcycle accident because he'd been drinking. A lot of my family members drank, and I probably would have followed down that road. But when you're a martial arts instructor, you can't go out and get drunk. You can't show up for class drunk. You got to be able to, lead by a good example. And I don't, I'm not like the Cobra Kai guy, on the Karate Kid, not like that. But you try and live not the life of a saint, but you want to live a good life. And I could always fight. When I was a kid, I grew up fighting. I got to tell you, one night at Kim's, we're training there, and my instructor, he was home from college, and some guy was smacking his wife out in the parking lot. They just pulled off the street, got in a fight. Well, he went out there and told the guy to stop. The guy come at him, and my instructor roundhouse kicked him and knocked him down. The guy gets up, starts chasing him around the car. I'm going like, dude, you're a black belt. You should kick the shit out of the guy. But he was good at Taekwondo, but he didn't know how to fight. So when he came around that car, I punched his lights out. I could fight. I didn't need Taekwondo to fight. And there's something about that. You want to be able to, you got to be able to fight and then not. You know what I'm saying? You have the choice, either fight or don't fight, but you can if it comes to it. And if you never try it, you're never going to know. And I'm not saying people need to go out there and get in fights, but get into a tournament, get into a cage fight, get in some real full contact fighting and see if you can do that. Yeah, I think martial arts is just, well, it's my whole life. I don't know what I would be without it. It's just all my friends, they're martial artists. You go on my Facebook page, everybody's either in jiu-jitsu or weightlifting. It's what we do. We stay in shape, try and live a good life.
Speaking of Facebook and keeping in good shape, what's up with you with the log at the Great Wall of China?
What's that? The
telephone pole log. I mean, same, but different.
I found out that instead of using free weights, you just pick up something heavy and walk. And so I worked at the phone company, so I snatched up half a telephone pole and I'd walk around the pole yard. I just took it home and I'd walk in my neighborhood. And then I just started carrying one around here, just walking. Just pick up something heavy and walk. It's going to build your strength rather than just going to a gym and doing leg presses and bench presses and lat pull downs, pick up a log and carry it. So that's what I did. The first time I took one out to Gray's Lake and I walked around Gray's Lake. That's 2.1 miles. I carried that log 2.1 miles. And one of the MMA fighters from the MCC, Rakim Cleveland, I'd seen him the night before at the fights, and he saw me and he took a picture of me out there at Gray's Lake with that pole going up and down them steps. And that's how we became friends. But yeah, so I got two of them out here in the backyard. So one's heavier than the other. So it depends on how I feel. Kind of like Rocky IV, right? When he goes to Russia, the Soviet Union, and he's doing squats with that log.
Greatest generation of movies ever, the 80s.
Yeah, we're just laughing about that today. They had Universal Soldier on with Dolph Lundgren and Van Damme. And Deb and I were laughing about that. Remember, we used to watch these stupid shows all the time. Look how corny they seem now. But we had to watch all the
I saw the theater, man.
Yeah, we had to see all those movies when they came out.
Absolutely.
That was just part of the culture.
Yeah, the 80s were great for martial arts, you know. Everything from the Karate Kid to Bloodsport and on is just great cinema. And you're a Billy Jack guy.
Yeah, I always liked Tom Laughlin. I have all his movies, Born Losers, Billy Jack, Trial of Billy Jack, and Billy Jack Goes to Congress. That one never made it. I still have a copy of it, but I think they destroyed all the copies.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So when your martial arts journey is all said and done, and your legacy that you've built over your lifetime in the martial arts community, how do you want to be remembered?
No, just a man. When I die, you know, I mean, all these certificates, everything I've got, they're probably just going to throw them all away, and they'll move on with their lives. And you know, hopefully somebody will remember me somewhere. It's going like, oh yeah, I remember Mr. Paulson. But yeah, I don't have any aspersions to greatness or anybody remember me. In fact, my instructor, well, my coach, jiu-jitsu coach, he posted something on Facebook about how when it's our time, we're just going to die and everything we tried to accumulate over the years will just be tossed by the wayside. And I said, yeah. I said, somebody once told me that you're never really gone until somebody speaks your name for the last time.
Ooh, that's good.
Yep. So I still mention my brother's name. He's been gone 50 years, my father's name, my grandfather's name. But I rarely talk about my great-grandfathers. And that's the generation that are gone, the ones before. So we're never really gone until someone speaks your name for the last time. As long as my kids and my grandkids, my students, some of their kids, you know, they remember me. And yeah, I remember Mr. Paulson. I'm never really gone.
Well, I can tell you firsthand that I'll never forget you, sir. And you've been fantastic person to get to know and learn from. And you still have a wealth of knowledge to share with people. So keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep on training and I do what I can do. You know, I'm gonna try and keep up with those 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds.
Yeah,
I learn.
So my last question, there's that person out there right now that might be watching this that is thinking, is martial arts for me? Do I walk in that door? They're feeling intimidated by the thought of whether it's going to roll on the mat in jiu-jitsu, going to take Kempo for the first time, or doing a kickboxing class because they're interested in Taekwondo. What advice would you give that person that's sitting on the fence or might want to walk in that door, but just kind of feeling intimidated?
Walk in that door, and if they don't make you feel at home, walk out. But whatever you do, don't go into an Aikido school. That shit doesn't work. We pick on. I got a friend. He teaches Aikido, and we pick on him all the time. You know, that's just a joke with martial artists. You know that.
That's so good.
If you feel good there, then you'll stick it out. If they don't make you feel at home, find another place. And I can go into any jiu-jitsu school and I can feel at home. But that's the way they are. Taekwondo, there's some politics involved in every martial art, but you'll find one that you can just enjoy, you know, that makes you feel like family. Like Professor Brongan. We're all Ohana. We're family. And that's how it should be. Why would you stay where you're not wanted?
Absolutely.
Why would you stay where it's competition 100% of the time? You know, someone's trying to take your head off every time you roll. No, fuck that. I don't need that in my life. I mean, if that's all it is, I can carry a gun. So It's just, so if it's just self defense, get a gun. But if it's a lifestyle you want, find a place that you feel at home, you feel comfortable, except Aikido, like I said.
Except Aikido. That's probably the best answer ever right there. Bye, sir. I appreciate you so much for coming on.